I'm Lee Spencer with the RacinBoys, and I'm with NASCAR champion Kurt Busch, and you're at Chip Ganassi Racing, and just seems like you're finally getting settled in here.
Yeah, I think the off-season's been great. All my trips to the shop are meant for a purpose, and that's to get the newness wore off, get the communication lines open, find out the strengths and the weaknesses, and to put a championship effort together. That's what it's all about. I've won one before, and the way that you do it is team communication and being in that zone when it counts towards the end of the year. And, there's some important races at the beginning of our season. Daytona, of course, but, Las Vegas is part of the playoffs when we're back there in September. And then we've got, some of the early parts of our season where we have to get homework done to grow as a team, but also to build our notebook for that championship run.
The dynamic over here is a lot different from the standpoint that at Stewart-Haas Racing, there were 4 uber competitive drivers from the standpoint that it was like every man for himself. Now you're with Kyle Larson, who has all the talent in the world and is probably more talented than your former teammates, but is still looking for that extra something to get him to the finish line. How can you two complement each other?
It's going to be fun. In all honesty, though, I think just by showing up, I've already kind of just pushed him a little bit. I don't even have to say a word to him. It's neat to have the talent that he has right there in front of him, and I see that there's these last little pieces of the puzzle missing, and I hope to just show him that direction, but ultimately it's up to him to capitalize on it. I'm not saying that I'm like the Oracle or anything, but I do have quite a few years of experience, and I'm happy to have a young, eager, ambitious, and talented teammate like Kyle Larson.
He's really remarkable. I've spent time away from the track with him. I've spent time away from the track with you. The one common denominator that I find with both of you is that you guys both work really hard, but you also like to play and have a good time. Do you think having that camaraderie and being able to develop that camaraderie will make for a better teammate situation for you this year?
Yeah, I think you're on to how we're both very committed when it's race time, and we're both wanting to separate away from the race shop and the racetrack to be with our families and to have our off time. And for us, we share a very common goal in golf, and any kind of thing to do with racing outside of Monster Energy Cup Series racing. And so that will help. And you just can't force those things to happen. And that's where, once this off season is behind us and we're at the track, that's a nice step. And then when there's time away from the track on a Tuesday or Wednesday after a team meeting, it's going to be like, hey, buddy, let's go grab a beer. Let's go play a round of golf. Let's figure out, what our strengths and weaknesses are as a teammate to each other and what the team at Chip Ganassi Racing can do better.
What was it about Chip Ganassi that enticed you to want to come over here?
Man, this started years ago, but it was the right timing. It was the right timing. And the way that Monster Energy was looking at me, like, what direction do you want to go? I'm like, guys, we're only going to pick a top-tier team to be able to win races and to have your sponsorship and your logo up front. And Ganassi said, I want to do that for you, Kurt. And I want to do that for you, Chip. That's what I told him. So it's that mutual respect and the passion that we both have is very similar. That respect of who I am as a racer and what I want to accomplish in the car is what Chip gave me, and that's what made the decision to come over here.
Has there been any discussion yet about a repeat in the Indianapolis 500? Because, clearly with his past record, is that something that you two have discussed, and might we see the two of you together in the month of May in Indy?
It has been discussed. We haven't circled back around with it in this calendar year yet. But one thing, that I know I learned that's a side effect of running the double is the time away from the Cup team and the sacrifices of communication and just the overall ability as a human being to give that 100% effort to the Monster Energy Cup car. And this being my first year here and on a one-year deal, right now the timing doesn't seem right, but it could happen. And that's where Chip and I will discuss at a later date to make sure that we've both explored the options we wanted to, and then go from there. But, I mean, he's got a sports car program. This NASCAR program is very important to me to make sure that it's as successful as I can make it be, and we'll go from there.
Earlier when we were in a scrum, I asked Matt McCall if he was willing to crack the whip, considering that your resume is a lot deeper than his is. And I don't think you're somebody who needs to have the whip cracked. But on the other side of that, I thought Billy Scott, your former crew chief, was, even though you guys had a great relationship, seemed a little passive on the radio. And Matt McCall, at times, he's got a fire, and I guess being a black belt in karate, kind of fuels that. He knows how to find balance in everything. Is there a certain direction you want your crew chief to take, and have you discussed that with Matt McCall yet?
I think you're on an interesting topic, Lee, in the way that I worked with Billy Scott last year. Billy Scott was Danica's crew chief before me, and I didn't know much about him, even when he was at Stewart-Haas. And the trajectory that I think we put each other on was a nice linear line. We're going to have Daytona, Atlanta, Vegas, and we're just going to build and build and build as a team. And when we got to Loudon in the second half of the season, which would be like the unofficial start of the second half, we grabbed a gear and you could see a big notch of an increase of communication, not aggression, but just more of a clear, crisp understanding of what needed to be done, because we were building up towards the middle of September when the playoffs kick off in Vegas. I think this year, just working with Matt McCall in this offseason, watching him, listening to him, and just feeling his approach, even though we haven't even been in the car or on the box together yet, we need to come out of the gate gangbusters and come out hot and see how things go, and then maybe tailor it off a little and see how things progress once we clear Texas and Richmond, because those are two very important races that are part of the playoffs, and then see how things go around the All-Star and maybe ramp it back up. But I know that it's going to be much more of an aggressive start, I think, with Matt McCall.
You're heading to the Las Vegas test, and does anyone really know what to anticipate out of these cars with 550 horsepower and just what the feel's going to be like, what they're going to react, and if so, do you think the new style car will play more into your wheelhouse?
I think the way to look at things is to draw obvious lines through, okay, there's going to be more throttle on time because we have less horsepower and more drag. We're going to check the box on, the fuel mileage is going to be poorer and there's less fuel because the fuel cell is altered at those races as well. So that means to me you're going to have more time on older tires and refires in the race, which we've seen a lot of times can be pretty wild when guys have fresh tires and guys that have the old, worn-out heat-cycled tires. So there's so many things to learn. I'm with a new group. I'm with a new manufacturer. We've got our fundamental ABC checklist to do while we're out at this test, and maybe we'll get to the bigger ticket items and some of those by the end of the test, but we'll have to see how it plays out. We've got our own program that we need to stick to on the one car, and that way we'll have more of our homework done before we show up to Atlanta, because Daytona is different than anything else.
There is one secret weapon that has come over here in addition to you in the off season, and that's Jazzy Jeff Curtis. And you worked with Jazzy at Furniture Row, and you know what the potential is there. What do you think he brings to this organization?
Yeah, Jazzy is a very, very experienced individual when it comes to simulation, the aero mapping, everything that has to do with how the cars react with ride height changes and even pace changes. Sometimes we see practices in the day and races at night, and that's where I never worked quite with Jazzy directly at Furniture Row, but with Cole Pern and that whole group at Furniture Row. That's where I saw the talent of Jazzy emerge. And, he had the option of going to Gibbs along with that group or coming over here to work with us. And part of my sales pitch with him was we're going to have some fun over here. Not that you're not going to have fun at Gibbs, but there's this other little guy named Kyle Larson that you might have some more fun with too. So he's going to be kind of an overseer of both programs when we get to the racetracks.
I think that'll be a phenomenal addition, and I can't wait to see what the two of you do together on and off the racetrack this year.
It's going to be fun. Just the whole dynamic of the team, the ambition, and the trajectory of where Chip Ganassi Racing wants to go. I think Kyle Larson's ready to take that next step, and so is everybody here. It's going to be fun.
Thank you for your time today, Kurt.
Thank you.